Coloradans get the mic twice on the final night of the Democratic National Convention. The stakes for Coloradans' rights, civil rights to gun rights, if Kamala Harris is elected.
She will need a party of the willing along with her.
Running for office and holding the office is very different.
Aurora's troubled police department tries to skirt community feedback and bring in a new chief, as Colorado's top law enforcement officer says APD needs long-term supervision from the outside. And the Coloradan at her 16th Democratic National Convention. She turned a childhood steeped in discrimination into a lifetime of making change.
You need to participate to have a voice.
We're on the road tonight, live from the DNC in Chicago for Next. Final night of the Democratic National Convention in Chicago. The Colorado delegation and the others on the floor are ready for the main attraction. Beyonce? Possibly. I don't know. The main attraction will be Democratic Vice Presidential nominee Kamala Harris. She gets to speak last tonight. Colorado's Democratic Congressman Joe Neguse was one of the first to speak.
Don't let anyone tell you that the American dream is dead. It is alive and well, and it will grow even stronger with Kamala Harris as the next president of the United States.
Neguse offered standard Democratic talking points, no standout lines that roused the crowd the way that the Reverend Al Sharpton is doing behind me right now. But Joe Neguse is on a rocket ship up Democratic House leadership right now. He is the assistant Democratic leader. That's the number 4 spot, highest ranking member from Colorado's congressional delegation in decades. His fellow Colorado Democrat in the House, Jason Crow, spoke just a couple of moments ago, a message trying to reclaim the issues of support for the military and patriotism and military service from Republicans and say that those are Democratic values that Kamala Harris will stand behind. Crow, of course, is a former Army Ranger. Now, there's no doubting where Kamala Harris stands on issues from civil rights to gun rights, broadly speaking, the issues of rights. She's been rolling out policy positions one by one as her young campaign gets off the ground. But on those broadly defined issues of rights, we know where she stands. She's got a firm track record, and there's no suggestion that she's changed her views on those things. So, as we did with our daily coverage of the RNC, each night here we are continuing to look at one area of policy and how it would impact Coloradans. This is Decision 2024, the stakes for Colorado. Tonight, our Marshall Zellinger looks at how a Harris presidency would impact the rights of Coloradans.
Let's talk about freedom.
In a way, it was fitting that Democratic Governor Jared Polis spoke at the DNC about social issues. With Polis' signature 2 years ago, Colorado put into state law protections for the right to an abortion. In November, voters will decide a ballot issue that could solidify those abortion rights in the state's constitution, regardless of who wins the presidential election.
I really see her presidency both protecting reproductive rights, expanding reproductive rights, and actually understanding the depth of the policy.
Karen Middleton is behind that ballot issue, and also as president of Cobalt, she advocates for abortion access and oversees a fund to help provide financial assistance for abortion care. But protecting or expanding reproductive rights requires more than just a president. Congress needs to pass a bill for Harris to sign, and right now, the House is controlled by Republicans, who are not likely to do that. And without a Democratic-controlled Congress, this next thing also seems unlikely.
Expanding the Supreme Court or reforming the Supreme Court, as President Biden has suggested, that could include term limits. That could include a temporary expansion.
When the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade, Justice Clarence Thomas wrote that the court should review previous decisions, including same-sex marriage. When she was California Attorney General, Harris refused to defend a ban on same-sex marriage that was passed by voters. And when that was overturned by the courts in 2013,
this is Kamala Harris.
She was on the phone with county clerks to make sure the marriages took place.
You must start the marriages immediately.
The LGBTQ+ community has been targeted by conservative-pushed book bans. At a campaign stop at a teachers' convention in Houston last month, Harris said this:
"We want to ban assault weapons, and they want to ban books."
On the topic of guns, Harris was clear about her goals while running for president in 2020.
I'm prepared to take executive action when elected and give the United States Congress 100 days to pull their act together on this. And if they do not, I will take executive action and put a comprehensive background check requirement in place, and by executive action, ban the importation of assault weapons into our country.
I would hope that one of the first things we would have a national, background check.
Democratic State Senator Tom Sullivan snapped this photo while attending that forum. He sees her work currently leading the Office of Gun Violence Prevention as a way to bring up gun control topics as president.
She should be pulling out that Office of Gun Violence Prevention, and they should be having press conferences. They should be having press releases. They should be visible to everybody.
I think if she had the opportunity to pass a full-scale nationwide assault weapons ban, she probably would. But the fact of the matter is that it's looking like Congress is not going to be in her favor.
A split Congress is on the side of Rocky Mountain gun owners, limiting the power of Harris to restrict gun ownership. But RMGO Executive Director Ian Escalante sees a Harris presidency as a way to convince Democratic-controlled states like Colorado to pass local issues similar to state-by-state abortion laws.
To use that bully pulpit to pressure governors, specifically Governor Polis, to start supporting more extreme gun control measures.
Civil rights and social issues are not the type where we would expect Harris to change her opinion, though she seemed more heavy-handed with executive order threats while running in 2020, especially in regards to gun legislation, Kyle. I have not heard her that specific on the campaign trail in the last few weeks.
That certainly will be something to watch for, yeah. But as you said, across the breadth of those issues, this is one spot where Americans, whether they're for or against Kamala Harris, can certainly know where she stands. Marshall, thank you. You can watch.
Hello, I'm 9 News Weather Impact Team meteorologist Kathy Sabin, starting with this picture because there was a glorious rainbow here just a minute ago with torrential rain coming down in downtown Denver in the last hour, right at the heart of the evening drive. Almost a half an inch of rain in less than an hour's time in downtown Denver. Thunder, lightning, and of course there was a stop at the BMW Golf Championship down that way as well. Severe thunderstorm watch for eastern Colorado till 11 o'clock. Hail will be the biggest threat, and we've already seen some large hail east of Denver. Storms are tracking southwest to the northeast with some damaging thunderstorm wind gusts to 60 and 70 miles per hour. Heaviest showers are south of Highlands Ranch and up toward DIA outside of Foxfield, and the severe storms are dropping big hail outside of Deer Trail and Byer. And this is the area outside of Byers and Agate that's already seen the rain and hail that we'll be watching late into the night for strong thunderstorms. So here we go. Future radar shows these storms growing and blossoming, moving out of Denver in the next hour or so. But scattered severe storms are likely across the eastern plains tonight, with heavy rain coming into the foothills. We're watching the burn scar areas very closely, with additional moisture coming in on saturated soils. It's been raining in the burn scar areas for the last 3 to 4 days. So we have a chance for storms tomorrow, but it'll be a little drier with comfortable highs in the mid-80s. Our high today was 88. We have 90s for the weekend, dry for the Broncos game, and then comfortable temperatures and a nice start to next week with sunshine and 80s on Monday and Tuesday.
Aurora's leaders got an earful at community forums a few years back when they only brought in white male finalists for the job of police chief in Colorado's most diverse city. So then this week, when Aurora suddenly announced a new police chief, they just decided to skip the finalists and the community forums, and they simply named the new chief. He's a white man. Our Mark Salinger shows us how the community is responding.
I am very happy to introduce Todd Chamberlain.
Inside the Aurora Police Department, the new chief introduces himself to a city that knows little about him.
Aurora is now my home.
Todd Chamberlain will be the 6th chief in 5 years to lead a department that's faced allegations of racism and biased policing, has been under the watch of a consent decree, and has for a long time said it is working to win back the trust of the community it serves.
But I do hope that I can bring the stability that this department needs.
Day one is not going well, if you ask people like State Senator Rhonda Fields.
The first call I got was from the press. Did you know? That hurts. Because me and so many other people are out here
trying to restore trust.
Chamberlain was chosen as chief without any input from the public. In 2022, the department faced criticism for announcing 3 white men as finalists to lead the department in Colorado's most diverse city. This time around, there were no community meetings, forums, or conversations with the community leaders who've been asking for transparency for years.
Their process is like a gut punch in our community, where they have just dismissed communities of color, crime victims.
It's almost as if there was this weaponization after the Black Lives Matter movement to say, if you want to defund us and you want to question what we do, we will completely cut you off.
Candace Bailey is an activist who led protests against police brutality after the death of Elijah McClain, and again this year following the death of Kylan Lewis.
Once again, we are seeing that commitment to transparency be completely thrown away.
If she had been able to ask Chamberlain questions before he was chosen, she likely would have asked him about his time at the Los Angeles Police Department. As a captain there more than 10 years ago, Chamberlain was named in a lawsuit alleging he failed to discipline or report an officer who was accused of racist behavior against a black officer. A jury awarded that officer, who alleged he was subjected to racial harassment, $1.2 million. We asked him about it today.
For someone in a lawsuit, they can write whatever they want on court paper. All they have to do is say it. They don't have to ever prove it.
And they got $1.2 million.
They did. And again, I was never involved in that. I was never involved in the lawsuit. I was the one that identified the issue. I was the one that brought it up to the attention.
Chamberlain also said that he left LAPD in part because it was a bad work environment, and that he would fix that type of behavior if he finds it exists here in Aurora today. Of course, that lawsuit in Los Angeles alleges that he didn't do that. Now, today, Democratic Attorney General Phil Weiser called for an independent monitor for the police department to be in place when the consent decree expires. He wants there to be a permanent structure for independent review of the Aurora Police Department. Kyle.
It is interesting, Mark, right? Because this is the most highly scrutinized police department in Colorado right now, and they bring somebody in by removing some of the layers of community scrutiny that he otherwise would have faced.
Exactly, and you talk to people like State Senator Rhonda Fields, who is one of the leaders, one of the most respected people in Aurora, and she says, we have been trying to restore trust for the Aurora Police Department for all these years. Just bring us into this conversation. They didn't do that. That's the new path that they're taking.
Yep. Interesting tack for a department that acknowledges that trust is, in fact, their largest issue. Mark Salinger, thank you for that reporting.
If we're, not in line with what viewers want to know, then we're missing our mark.
My conversation with NBC's Lester Holt about the future of journalism and why he shares some of the same concerns that you share. And even after 6 decades of helping to elect candidates to the Democratic National Convention, a trailblazer from Colorado says this year feels different to her, and not in a good way. That's next. The scores of journalists who are here covering the Democratic National Convention in Chicago are stacked up side by side as we bring a view of history to our communities. NBC's Lester Holt is right over there. I've been stealing that man's Wi-Fi all week. But when we had a chance to talk today, it was about a more serious topic. What lies ahead for journalism that is struggling both with public trust and finding an economic model that works? What would you have to say to any American who is concerned about the future of journalism and sees it as something that is indispensable to the country?
I think they should be concerned about journalism. I think that's what keeps us on our toes. I mean, we're not doing this for each other. We're doing it for the viewers. And if we're not in line with what viewers want to know, then we're missing our mark. I think. I love the fact that people are discussing journalism again, and not necessarily in sweeping negative terms or poking fun. They're genuinely concerned. I think there's been a new recognition over the last couple of years of the importance of what we do, and that we are a pillar of democracy. And we need to be held accountable just as much as we hold others accountable.
Lester Holt and I also talked about the challenges of responsibly covering misinformation, and you can find that on the next YouTube channel and in the next section of 9news.com. Democratic Congresswoman Yadira Caraveo from Colorado is skipping the Democratic National Convention after the most vulnerable House member in our state voted to condemn Vice President Kamala Harris over border policy. Caraveo told our partners at Colorado Politics that she's skipping the DNC so that she can spend the time focused on her district. Now, Republicans were happy to point out Caraveo's conspicuous absence on a rolling billboard here in Chicago and happy to provide journalists with photos of that. Caraveo declined our interview to talk about her reasoning for her vote with Republicans, one of just 6 Democrats to join them in condemning Harris over immigration policy. Today, she held a cafecito, a listening session in Greeley with members of the Latino community at a time in which many of her most vocal critics are here in Chicago.
Oh, I am so grateful that I've been able to live the life I've lived.
Polly Baca's life and her life's work has had her at the center of American political history for decades. My conversation with a legend of Colorado politics, a 16-time attendee at the DNC. Next. Polly Baca is the closest thing you will find to a professional shatterer of glass ceilings. She has broken one after another in her 6 decades in Colorado politics. First Latina to be elected to both houses of a state legislature anywhere in America. First Latina nominated by a major party for a seat in Congress. First Latina to chair a national convention. And she is at this Democratic National Convention in Chicago, her 16th time.
Bear with us. Thank you for your patience. I know it's been a little trying.
There's a difference between having patience
Oh, wait a minute. I wanted to ask you.
and waiting around for something to happen.
Yes, it's amazing.
Polly Baca preaches patience while also spreading the gospel of doing the work
It's your 100th time in my purse.
for as long as it takes.
Oh, you mean taking a picture with me?
Oh, yes.
I'm honored.
No, I'm honored.
But I've been in this game now, 60 years I've been coming to these Democratic conventions.
This is her 16th, every one since 1964.
The things that I fought for in the 60s, we still haven't reached full parity. But we're a lot better than we were then.
Polly Baca has seen the best and worst of America in her 83 years.
We had, signs in stores in Greeley and Fort Collins and other places that said no Mexicans or dogs allowed. So it was a difficult time growing up, which is why I got involved in politics, because I saw politics as the avenue to change the laws. And I knew at that time that you could change the laws when you wouldn't necessarily change the hearts of people. But eventually, if you change the laws, the hearts follow.
Baca's been up close for some of the hardest and most heartbreaking times in American politics, alongside LBJ working for civil rights. There, the night Bobby Kennedy was killed. In Chicago in '68 to enlist Teddy Kennedy, the night that violence erupted in the streets. And alongside her friend Cesar Chavez in his long march for workers' rights.
I was actually the co-chair of the National Convention in 1980 and in '84.
We Democrats are lucky.
And how she became the first Latina to do so many things at the state and federal level, knowing that being first often means starting work others will finish.
So I introduced pay equity in 1980. It just took 40 years to get passed. But it got passed. It got passed.
Patience, they say, is something of a saintly virtue.
Well, we'll see you at the rest of this convention.
And that is why so many people
Hey, Rudy, how are you?
revere Polly Baca. Polly Baca says that she feels worried in a way that she has not at any point in her 60 years in politics. Worried that if Donald Trump gets back into power, that he and his party might refuse to ever give it back up again. And she says she's concerned that the American democracy that she has devoted a lifetime to might not be strong enough to hold. We're back with your feedback from Chicago next. Debbie writes in tonight, I remember when political conventions had an edge to them, more rough and tumble. Yes, Debbie, Chicago remembers as well, 1968. Nobody wants to see that. 1980 was the last time there was intrigue. There isn't much this year. This is Kamala Harris's party. We'll see you next time.